My life in my third year of dental school has been absolutely insane, and in this video, I want to break down the typical weekly schedule of a third year dental student. And before we get into the schedule breakdown, this video is proudly sponsored by PetCube. You've probably heard me talk about PetCube, but if you haven't, you need to listen up. PetCube makes amazing home cameras for our pets. I go to clinic all the time and worry about Daisy at home in her crate. PetCube takes the worry away as I can see her every movement live on my phone. The Bites to Light camera produces 1080p video, has two-way audio, and allows me to fling a treat to Daisy with just the flick of a finger. Daisy loves these treats so much, she might actually like the PetCube even more than I do. This camera has been an awesome addition to my apartment, and I would recommend it to anyone as the product is very high quality and the app has every feature that I've ever needed. It even offers you a level of safety as the PetCube has the ability to alert you of any dangerous activity near your pet. The best part about PetCube is that right now they're having a Black Friday sale, which will allow you to get any of their products at an awesome discount. Don't go through your busy schedule without knowing what's up with your pup. Check out PetCube today and get to flicking those treats. Back to the video. Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and if you're new here, my name is Steven and I'm a third year dental student, and if you have been following the channel for a while, you will have probably recognized that I've posted less videos on my YouTube channel this semester, and the major reason for that has been an absolute uptick in what we do week to week in dental school. The first 2 years of dental school are largely lecture and lab based. You do lectures throughout each of your days, and then you also have probably an equal amount of time spent in lab. Of course, there's a lot of studying that goes into it, and there is some lab work outside of your lab time, but generally speaking, the schedule is kind of what you see is what you get. In the third year, not only is the schedule itself more dense, but there are also more items that take up time outside of what's actually listed on the schedule. So I'm gonna get into what we see here and then also talk about some of the things that have been taking up my free time outside of the listed schedule. If you enjoy content about dental school and you want to see more, make sure that you subscribe to this channel. Subscribe if you're interested, and let me know what you think down below. Dental school has a constantly evolving schedule. It's not something that's set and is the same week to week. It kind of changes quite a bit throughout the semester. And then of course, semester to semester, they're very, very different. This semester has been no different. They sort of top loaded a lot of our lectures on the front end of the semester. And as we've gone throughout the last couple of months, some of those lectures have ended and we've focused more and more on our clinic time. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with what the weekly schedule looked like back in the beginning of the semester. I'll then talk about what it looks like right now, and then I'll quickly discuss how it will change by the very end of the semester, which is pretty close at this point. So let's jump right on into it. Looking at the way Mondays looked at the very beginning of the semester, not much has changed here. This is something, Monday specifically, is something that's been very constant throughout the semester. And our days on Mondays start at 8 a.m. when we're expected to be in the clinic in our groups, our clinical groups for Huddle. Now, Huddle is technically a class. It's called Evidence-Based Dentistry, and it is a 30-minute period of time that starts at 8 a.m. when all of the people in your clinical group get together and hear a presentation that is given by either our teachers who are dentists or D4s. So our groups in the clinic, there are 6 of them, and they are made up of an equal amount of D4s and D3s. But like I said, Huddle usually lasts for about 30 minutes. Now it's important to note here that what comes after Huddle is our first clinic session of the week. So if you have a patient scheduled for that Monday morning slot, it's important that you show up to the clinic well before 8 o'clock so that you can set up for that appointment. Because sometimes Huddle will last to 8:30, 8:35-ish, and starting to set up for your 9 a.m. appointment at 8:35 is sort of a recipe for disaster because it takes a while to set up everything. So I tend to actually get to school on a morning when I have clinic at about 7:30 or 7:15-ish. Next up is our first clinic slot of the day, and that is our 9 a.m. clinic slot. What these are is they are 3-hour-long slots when we can schedule a patient. We can schedule a patient anywhere we like or anywhere we need to, and we get 3 hours hours in these morning slots to do whatever we need to do with our patient. We can only schedule one patient during this 3-hour slot, but typically the appointments will last around that amount of time. It takes a long time to do things in dental school because of how much we have to go through and get things checked off by our professors. But that is our 9 a.m. morning clinic slot on Monday. Technically, that clinic slot lasts till 12 p.m., at which point we have a 1-hour-long break for our lunch. This kind of depends on if you have a patient in the afternoon, but if you do, you're most likely going to be setting up during that lunch period, and that's when it's nice to get out of that morning clinic slot early so that you have time to set up for your next appointment and also eat some lunch. This kind of depends for me. I usually don't have lunch on these days, which kind of sucks, but sometimes I have a little bit of extra time depending on how my morning appointment goes, and I'll be able to set up and then get downstairs to the student lounge to have a little bit of lunch with my friends. And next up on Monday afternoon is a 1 o'clock clinic slot time, and this is a 1 to 4 times. We get 4 hours for these appointments. It is a nice amount of time to do big things in dental school. So some of the bigger requirements that we have, if you're doing, for example, a CAD/CAM crown, which is something that you're doing from start to finish, it's very important that you schedule it in the afternoon so you have as much time as possible. Also things like our comps, which are clinical experiences that are graded with a lot more scrutiny, those are important to put in the afternoon when you have a little bit more time to spend on finishing everything up. Tuesday is the exact same. Now also it's important to note here that sometimes instead of having huddle in the morning at 8 a.m., we would have a 1-hour lecture. So if that was the case, you had to definitely get there to set up for your 9 a.m. appointment well before 8 a.m. You would then go over to the lecture hall and then we'd run back at like 8:55 to get ready for our 9 a.m. appointment. It was kind of crazy. We did it a few times, and that was the case on the Tuesday that I'm looking at here. But then it's the same thing, 9 a.m. clinic slot, and once again, another clinic slot at 1 p.m. Wednesdays this semester have been our shake-up days. These have been our lecture days when we have lecture all day and no clinical time. An interesting change up for the week. I actually kind of liked it because doing 4 appointments in those first 2 days takes a lot out of you. And it was nice on Wednesdays to kind of have a little bit of a break to reset and not have to worry about clinic, not be as stressed. Go sit down in a lecture hall and listen to lectures. The first lecture that we would have every Wednesday is our 8 a.m. oral pathology lecture. This is our most difficult course of the semester, and we always had it on Wednesday mornings at 8, and that was a 1-hour-long lecture. At 9 a.m. in the beginning of the semester, we would have a 2-hour-long special patient care lecture. This was a course in which we learned how to treat patients that were sort of non-traditional, not your typical healthy, middle-aged patient. Patients like elderly patients, patients with special needs. These were the types of patients that we learned about in this class, and that was a 2-hour lecture. Now in the afternoons on Wednesdays, we would have one of 2 things, but both were related to orthodontics. Either we had a lecture or we had a lab. Now for me, I preferred the lecture because I could just sit down and listen. The lab actually required us to go into the lab and do things. And if you're wondering what those things were, the big thing that we learned how to do was bend wires.
This the 4th pattern. What is that? It's the 4th pattern, bro.
And then the big project that we had was creating a Nance appliance, which is something that you'll learn about when you get to dental school. But those were kind of what we did in our ortho labs. And that lab was 1 p.m. to 3 or 4 p.m. depending on how long you needed to finish up what was required of you. Thursdays have been another 2-slot clinic day, so 9 to 11 and then 1 to 4 again. We've also had exams that start at 8 a.m. on Thursdays, so once again, just wrinkles were thrown in throughout the semester and it's kept me on my toes. And finally, Fridays have been the biggest mix up of the semester because we have both lectures and clinic time on Fridays. Friday mornings are lectures, and that begins with an 8 a.m. clinical correlation conference lecture. This was sort of a class in which we were retaught specific medicine topics that kind of relate to different systems in the body. And that was a 2-hour lecture. After that, at 10 a.m., we would have a periosurgery lecture, which was a course in which we learned they called it basic surgeries in periodontology, but it's mostly surgeries that we as general dentists probably would not do, things that most periodontists do. And that's things like crown lengthening, free gingival grafts, and bone grafting. There's a lot of other things in there. Those are the types of things that you learn in basic periodontal surgery. And that was a lecture that we had for 2 hours on Friday mornings at 10 a.m. And then on Friday afternoons, we had one more clinic slot for the week that started at 1 p.m. and went till 4:30-ish. And that was a nice spot to kind of schedule somebody in at the end of the week. If you were able to get one last thing done in the week, it was a good time to do it. As the semester has gone on, we've dropped off in the amount of lectures that we've had, and we've gained in clinic time. So for example, the week that we get back from Thanksgiving, which is coming up here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 clinic slots in 1 week, as opposed to like maybe 6 or 7, which we had in the beginning of the semester. So 9 clinic slots is a lot of area to get things done. I'm the type of person that likes to have a patient scheduled in every clinic slot. I get kind of nervous if I don't have somebody in the chair at all times, and that's just my personal sort of ideology when it comes to scheduling my patients. But I know that some people have decided to kind of give themselves more rest time and haven't been booking patients in every slot. I think we'll all get finished, we'll all graduate by the end of this whole thing. But for me personally, I'd like to go ahead and stack them as much as possible on the top end, get as much as I can done here early in my third year dental school. And then by the time, hopefully, I get towards the end of D4 fall and into D4 spring, I have most of my requirements finished and I can kind of cruise through D4 year. I also wanted to note the additional things that we've done this semester that have added to our schedule. On some days, instead of having a clinic slot, we will have an oral surgery seminar in which we go to our oral surgery department, our graduate department. We sit down with one of the heads of that department and we give presentations about various oral surgery topics, kind of sit around a table and talk about drugs, surgery, diseases, all sorts of other things related to oral surgery. It's a pretty cool class and it's very laid back. We just kind of give a quick presentation and then the professor that we work with gives his input and kind of adds to the conversation. So that one has been pretty nice to have as sort of a change up, and that will take up one clinic slot every once in a while. We have also had exams in all of our classes pretty much. Those lecture courses that I talked about earlier, we've had exams throughout the semester. So you might see this schedule and say, well, it starts at 8 a.m. and it ends at 5 p.m. That's a normal work day. In reality though, if you have an exam coming up on a Wednesday, you might work with 4 patients on Monday and Tuesday, and each day you're getting home at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and then you're expected to study for as long as you can, I guess, until the end of the day for that Wednesday exam. So that right there has added so much time onto my schedule, just getting home late at night after I've picked up Daisy from daycare or wherever she is, taking care of her. I then have to sit down and study late at night pretty much so that I'm prepared for my exams. And then the other big chunk of time is actually lab work. So we do all of our own lab work in dental school. Mostly it's related to removable prosthodontics, but removable prosthodontics, when we're actually making dentures for patients, the amount of lab work required with this specialty is a ton. And so if you're the type of person like me who likes to have a patient scheduled in every clinic slot, you have to do that lab work outside of school. So after school hours or before or whenever you can get in. Through lunch, there's plenty of ways to do it, none of which are particularly fun. There's just a ton of lab work required once you get into removable with your patients. And of course, we have a bunch of requirements, so it's important that we do these things. So with the lab work and the tests and all of these other things that pop up, my schedule has been absolutely insane this semester. I have been busier this semester than I have been at any other point in dental school by far, honestly. And thinking back to D1 year when we were in COVID times and we had online lectures for everything, it is shocking and hilarious to think about how different my schedule was back then compared to what it is now. I have barely had time to do anything, and that has included the YouTube videos. But I'm chugging through and I'm trying to make it. And so far everything has been good and everything has been has been going according to plan, so I can't complain there. I think the important thing to note for this video is that a lot of you might be pre-dental students and you might be thinking, wow, this seems insane. I'm not sure how I'm gonna go from my undergraduate schedule to something like that, where you're basically working a full-time job and then you're expected to study and do all this lab work on top of that full-time job. You might be thinking that there's no way I can transition to that. In reality though, they do ramp you into things. It's taken many semesters to get to this 5th semester when things have been absolutely crazy. So I think, like, for example, if somebody like me can make this transition and be slowly ramped into it and get to this point where now I'm making it work, I'm functioning, I'm getting patients in the chair, and I'm getting things done, if I can do it, you can certainly do it. And I say that all the time because I genuinely mean it. And to any of my D1s and 2s out there who are listening to this video, it gets harder, actually. It gets harder, and you might be thinking that in your D2 year, nothing will ever be harder than this. It's been more challenging this semester, but once again, it's doable. It's all doable. It just takes time, effort, energy, and it's draining at times. You know, I've done less working out. I haven't eaten as healthy. I haven't put as much time into my YouTube videos. All these things that I enjoy doing, I haven't really been able to do as much this semester because it's kind of just been a sprint to get as much done as possible. But once again, I'm trying to open up time for myself during my D4 year where I can kind of sit back and not have to worry as much about getting all of my requirements done to graduate. If you're like me, that's how you'll do your 2 years of clinical experiences in dental school, and I personally think that's the best way to do it. I'll be talking a lot more about this topic of clinic and how we get through all of this in the future, and if you don't want to miss any of that, make sure that you subscribe now and hit the bell notification button so that you get notifications every time I upload a video. That really helps. It's been very fun breaking down my schedule with you, and you've now seen what it's like to be a dental student in the 3rd year, a full week of a schedule. Once again, it's something that's very evolving. It's never the same, it's never static. It changes a lot, but I've been getting through it. Friends, thank you for watching this video, and thank you for joining me in a week of our schedule. As I always say at the end of my videos, I will see you in the next one.